I'm ready to start Dragonfly and Amber, and I'm really excited because NGL Literary Labors will join us in this body reading experience. Because I really enjoyed the first book, I cannot wait to read the second book. And additionally, I do not remember the second season of the TV series, not as vividly as the first series. So I think I will have more surprises while reading this second book in the series. I read the first two chapters of Dragonfly and Amber, and we are right now in the more present time, in 1960s, and we met Claire's daughter, Brianna, and also Roger. Like in the TV series, I'm liking Roger very, very much. He's a very clever man. Also, his fondness for Brianna is very cute. I do not remember what happens in this book as much as I remembered the first one. So I'm really excited how Roger will find out about Jamie and Claire. I finished almost 20% of the book, and I'm a bit behind the body reading experience. I need to check in by this evening, but I think I will be able to do that by tomorrow afternoon, since it's Saturday. I can still catch up with the girls. We are now in the past again, and Claire is telling about her stories and time in France with Jamie. Their aim is to prevent the Jacobite rebellion led by Bonnie Prince Charlie. And these parts were actually my least favorite parts in the TV series. Although I'm interested in reading the book and finding especially the parts in which Jamie and Claire still do tease each other and do love each other very much, because the intrigues in French court and the very over-the-top relationships do not interest me as much as what would happen to our main characters. I'm not loving these parts as much as I loved the first book. On the other hand, on the last scene that I finished, Claire and Jamie saw Jack Randall again, because Jamie thought Jack Randall was dead and was relieved for it, and actually had nightmares that he was still alive. I think it will be an interesting section. And for remembering the details of the book from the TV series, I can say that I'm remembering as I'm reading the sections. For example, I vaguely remember they met Jack Randall in France. In that part in which Claire knew that Jack would die at Battle of Culloden and would have to marry to produce an heir, which would be Frank's ancestor. Claire actually hoped that he wasn't dead, but for Jamie's sake, she wished that he was dead. So it was a very conflicting situation for her, and I'm glad, although Claire clearly chose Jamie over Frank, it was good to know that she still cared about him as a person. Yes, that's all I can say for now. I'm much more excited now that Frank is in the picture. I'm in chapter 5 and I'm really enjoying the current timeline as well. Roger is a very sympathetic character, as he was in the TV series, but there was something that was very interesting. Although we now know that Brianna is Jamie's daughter, and Roger also knows that Brianna is James Fraser's daughter. And there are so many clues to Claire's time traveling. On the other hand, of course, Roger is not like us and thinks that time travel is just a fiction. He cannot put the clues together. and he thinks that the mystery is deepened with each clue he finds. It was a very good detail on the author's part again. I finished chapter 12 and I'm actually enjoying the parts in France much more than the previous time that I mentioned, because it focused more on Claire's activities as a healer. It was not Frank Randall that we read at the end of previous vlog, but his brother. Now I remember what would happen, and I cannot wait to read the sections in which Claire will find more about her ex's ancestors. And also in this book we learn more about the depth of Jamie's intelligence and his quick thinking, and also his wit. So, and since we are mostly following Claire's point of view, especially in the past, it's natural that she learns much more about Jamie as the time goes. There was a part in which I wanted Claire to be involved with the patients, to be occupied and to be more happy and satisfied, but you know, because of the pandemic, I was like, no, she's pregnant, she can't go there, and fortunately she does not treat the patients with contagious diseases. So it was interesting to read this book written in 1992 in COVID times. I'm just reading the part in which Jamie reads the letter of Prince Charlie. I mean, Fergus, the boy whom he employed as his servant, steals the letter for him. Although the idea of encrypted letters and political mysteries do intrigue me a lot in many books, in this book I'm reading it with a mild interest. Maybe because I know that Jamie and Claire's plan will certainly not work, because it says so in the beginning of the book. Before the flashbacks, there will certainly a battle of Culloden, and although Claire seems to be misinformed about when Jamie dies, not in the battle, their plan certainly did not work. That could be the reason why I'm not very invested in a plot point that I would certainly be much more interested in another book. Just yesterday I said that I was mildly, not very much interested in the plot device of them trying to prevent the Jacobite rebellion. But there was the last section that I finished had a section about how the music and the keys in the music and all the other elements of music was used for encrypted messages, and how they deciphered it with the help of a nun, which was very interesting actually. So I guess I have to take my saying that I'm only a little bit interested in this plot point, because I'm now fully invested in how they will decipher all of the hidden messages about the Jacobite rebellion. Just finished chapter 18, and this section was a bit hard to read because 3 men attempted to rape Claire, and one of them unfortunately did rape Mary when they were returning from hospital, and it was really hard for Mary especially, and how her psychology and her health was affected so badly. It was really hard for us to read, and Claire, who has also been through so much, although she wasn't raped in the physical sense, she was because she was sexually assaulted and had a very bad trauma. She was very vulnerable, and she fortunately found comfort in Jamie. On the other hand, Mary's condition is much worse. We just found out that Alex is in love with her because she is traumatized so much. Although Alex never leaves her side, cannot be a comfort to her. On the other hand, there was a sentence declared by Jamie that this rape should not be made public because Mary's reputation would be ruined, and she would be a spinster and nobody would want to marry her. And Claire objects by saying, but it's not her fault. This dialogue could have taken place in many cities in my country and in many cities are all around the world. And I would say the same objection that Claire gave. It's really hard for us to read how some things do not change through time. Well, Claire lost her child, and that scene and her pain was a bit hard to read. And the fact that the miscarriage happened because Jamie and Frank Randall apparently was going to have a duel, and Claire tried to prevent it, but because of her fragile health, she lost her baby. Even though I really do understand Jamie's fury and his will to kill Frank Randall because of what he has done. I really wish that he had kept his promise to wait another year. Another thing, I'm not really sure I like the character of Raymond, the physician who does some metaphysic things, and his way of healing Claire, of course, helped her to recover physically, but I'm not really sure I like that, because I'm a strong believer in much more hardcore medicine. So I have really conflicted feelings about that scene as well. I finished chapter 29. Claire and Jamie are now going back to Scotland and leaving France, and I'm really glad that they are leaving France, because these parts were not very interesting, with the exception of Claire's activities in the hospital. The only thing that was sort of interesting since the last time I checked in was the fact that Jonathan Randall will not be able to have children because of the duel that he did with Jamie. Jamie injured him. And also the parts in which Jamie and Claire confronted each other after the loss of their baby were really strong. They experienced grief, anger, sorrow, loss, love, everything. Like all the other Jamie and Claire scenes in the first book, Outlander, these sections were the parts that I was most impressed by in terms of storytelling and character development. Now they will return to Lallybroch, my favorite place in Scotland, and I cannot wait to read the second half of the book. I just come to the part in which Jamie and Claire and Fergus want to join the Jacobite rebellion led by Charles. It's interesting because they were trying to prevent it in the beginning, but somehow Charles wrote Jamie's name without his consent, because he seemed to be such a close friends with him. And that is really a very interesting turn of events. And Although I remembered him joining the rebellion from the TV series, but I did not remember that detail, and I found it very interesting. Anyway, the parts in which they spent in Lillybrook was again wonderful. I really do enjoy the relationship between all of the four main characters in that house, and Jamie and Claire are a wonderful couple, but Ian and Jenny are also a wonderful couple with very different dynamics, and I cannot read enough about them. And also in this book we see the brotherhood between Ian and Jamie, which is very fun to read about actually, because they tease each other a lot, and I really do like the sincere relationship between all of these characters. When we are talking about characters, I have to admit I'm not a fan of Fergus, although he has been through a lot. I really do not like him. Maybe he is trying to be presented as a comic relief in the book, but I do not find him funny. But even Fergus in this chapter was not as annoying as he was in sections of the book in Paris. It has been a lot of time since I last checked in. It's now April 3rd, and I actually did not pick up the book in the last week of March because I wanted to finish the other books that I was planning to read for readathons in March, and I finished them fortunately, but I didn't have any time to read Dragonfly in Amber. In the first day of April I picked up the book again and progressed quite a bit actually. But the reason that I didn't check in because I was conflicted how I feel about what I'm reading. I'm actually liking some parts that I'm reading. The interactions between Claire and Jamie. The part where Callum came to visit Jamie and Claire. Also some of the parts in which Claire heals the wounded soldiers. I've never liked battle scenes in any book, and this book actually became no exception. There was a part in which Jamie talked about his time in the battlefield and how he was wounded. Even that part wasn't very interesting for me, although I really like Jamie and care for his health. Also, there was a part in which Jamie and his uncle dueled, which was very boring for me. So I guess that's the thing that really kept me about fully enjoying this section. And now the Jacobites have won the first battle, but Claire and Jamie were expecting this, of course, because they knew the outcome of the first battle, but they also know that they will be beaten in the second one. Anyway, we are now in the time between first and the second battle, and Claire has gone back to the city of Edinburgh and now lives in close quarters with Prince Charles. I wanted to check in right now because Jack Randall actually came to visit Claire, and we don't know what he wants. We only know that he has been injured so that he would not be able to have children in the future. So I'm wondering if he came to show his injuries to Claire and somehow want her to heal them. We'll see. Well, after the last time I checked in, the story became much more interesting and more fast-paced. First of all, the reason that Jack Randall visited Claire was because of his brother, who's very close to, unfortunately, his death. And he wanted to make sure that his brother is taken care of with the help of Claire. And interestingly, we see a very different side of Jack Randall in this section. where he cares for his brother and also tries to help Claire with information from the English troops. The part that I was most interested in was when Jamie and Claire visited Jamie's paternal grandfather. They went there so that they would ask for the support of the rebellion, and Prince Charlie sent them there actually. And Jamie's grandfather is a very different and unique character. He's not very kind-hearted, but he's very clever, and also it is clear that he has been very attractive to women, and we can see that in his talk and his confidence. I didn't like him as a character. I really enjoyed reading about. And now Jamie and Claire are back in Lallybroch. I know they will not stay there for long, but it's really sweet that we will get to see more of my beloved Jenny and her husband Ian. So we spent almost no time in Lallybroch. We didn't even see Jenny or Ian speak. After that, in a small battle, Claire was taken by the English because Jamie, Dougal, and some other Scots had to pretend that Claire was kidnapped, so that they would be escaped, and they made a bargain with the English soldiers. And after that, Claire was taken to Duke of Sandringham, and the Duke was apparently the godfather of Mary, who's a very kind and lovable character, who's in love with Jack Randall's brother. And Claire was kept there as a prisoner, and then Jamie rescued him, and Mary came with them. I mean, this part was not boring, but I didn't feel like it was necessary, because it felt like a repetition of a scene that we saw in the first book. And aside from getting Mary to their side, it didn't help the story at all. We just knew that the Duke was behind the sexual assault of Claire and rape of Mary, and then tried to kill Jamie as well. But Murtagh actually took their revenge, and the story just ended there. Maybe it could be because we just learned some answers about what happened in the past. I'm not really sure. I finished the book, and I have conflicted feelings about the ending. I actually liked the last scene of the ending, in which Claire learned that Jamie was alive from Roger. The fact that Roger was descended from Gillis Duncan and Dougal Mackenzie, it was interesting actually. If they prevented Gillis's time travel to Scotland, then Roger would not exist. It was interesting in that sense. It was just like Frank would not exist if Jack Randall had been murdered by Jamie. So it was a interesting twist on that subject. On the other hand, we already knew from the beginning of the book that the Battle of Culloden was lost, and also Jamie was most probably alive from the findings of Roger that we learned in the third chapter of the book, which made the book a bit unexciting actually. On the other hand, because I liked the character development of almost all of the characters, and the addition of new characters such as Mary, Alex, and of course Brianna and Roger was done very, very well. I think Diana Gabaldon really excelled in creating the characters. But not so much with the setting of the book. If we had not learned that they could not change the events in history, the fact that Jamie was most probably alive, I think this book would have been much better. Overall, I'm going to give this book a 7 out of 10. I'm much more hopeful for the next book because Kim, one of my body reading partners, said that the other books were much better than the second book. I cannot wait to read the third book, Voyager. We haven't decided on the time yet. We all agreed to finish the book in April. But I'm really liking this relaxed body reading experience. No pressures in any of us. Hopefully we will meet in another reading vlog of Voyager with spoilers. As for Turkish word of the day, I'm going to choose Dragonfly for word of the day. Dragonfly means Yusufçuk in Turkish, and Yusufçuk is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.